The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that caught the light of distant stars. Inside, representatives from 7 alien civilizations sat in a wide circle. Their forms were strange and varied. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with their own inner light. But all of them shared one thing today. They were looking down at the 3 humans who stood in the center of the chamber. Commander Taemin stood straight and tall in his dark blue uniform. The silver bars on his collar caught the light as he breathed slowly, keeping his face calm. Next to him, Ambassador Haijin wore traditional diplomatic robes, her hands folded in front of her. Science Officer Ji-ho held a data pad, his fingers tight around its edges. All 3 of them knew this meeting would not go well. The Vesker elder rose from his seat. His body was thin and ancient, covered in a rough gray skin that looked like old stone. His species had lived for 80,000 years, and he was one of their oldest members. When he spoke, his voice came out like grinding rocks, deep and slow. The translation device made his words clear to everyone in the chamber. "I must speak a warning," the elder said. His large eyes, dark as black holes, looked at each council member. "In our archives, we have records from a civilization that died long ago. They called themselves the Witnesses. Before they vanished, they left us a message about a planet called Earth and the creatures who live there. They called them humans." The elder turned to look at Taemin and his companions. "The Witnesses visited Earth 50,000 years ago. They watched these humans survive ice and darkness. They watched them fight terrible beasts with nothing but stones and sticks. They watched them war against each other for thousands of years. And the Witnesses were afraid." A harsh laugh broke the silence. High Commander Vraxis of the Draxian Empire stood up. He was massive, easily 3 times the size of any human, with 4 arms and armor that gleamed like blood. His face was all sharp angles and cruel edges. Afraid of these tiny creatures? Look at them. They barely have fusion engines. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow and weak. We have conquered 40 star systems. What have these humans done? They argue among themselves and struggle to survive on their small worlds. Other council members nodded. Some whispered to each other. A few laughed quietly. The humans said nothing, but Haijin's eyes narrowed just slightly. The Vesker elder continued, his voice sad and heavy. The Witnesses' final message was not complete. Much of it was damaged. But they spoke of something they called human fury. They said these creatures do not know how to surrender. They said humans adapt to anything, survive everything, and remember every wrong done to them. They called it creative destruction. I do not fully understand what this means, but the fear in their words was clear. Vraxis walked down from his seat, his heavy footsteps making the floor shake. He stopped in front of Taemin, looking down at the human commander. "I see no fury here. I see a species that has been at peace for less than 1 human century. I see a species that cries about fairness and justice. You are children playing with fire, hoping the adults will not notice." Taemin met the alien's gaze without blinking. His voice was quiet but clear. "We prefer peace, Commander. We always have. But we are very good at war, too. We had 10,000 years to practice." Vraxis laughed again. "Practice? We have technology you cannot imagine. Our ships can destroy planets. Our weapons can boil oceans. What do you have? Old missiles and hope? Creativity," Ji-ho said softly from behind Taemin. "And memory. We remember everything." The council vote came quickly. The Draxian Empire would take the human colonies on the frontier. The humans had 1 Earth year to leave or submit to Draxian rule. Every member voted yes, except the Vesker elder, who simply closed his eyes and said nothing. The decision was final dot as the three humans turned to leave, the chamber filled with quiet conversations. The aliens were already discussing how to divide the human territories, what resources they would gain, how easy the conquest would be. No one seemed worried. No one seemed to understand what they had just done. Outside the chamber, in a small private room, the Vesker elder waited for them. His ancient body moved slowly as he approached Hai-Jin. "Ambassador, I must speak with you alone." Tae-Min and Ji-Ho nodded and stepped away, though they stayed close enough to help if needed. The elder's dark eyes studied Hai-Jin's face for a long moment. "My people have seen many species rise and fall. We have watched empires grow and collapse into dust. In all our time, we have rarely felt the fear that the witnesses described in their records. But I feel it now. Why?" Hai-Jin asked. "Because the Draxians do not understand what they are doing. They see your small numbers and old ships. They do not see what the witnesses saw. They watched your ancestors hunt animals 50 times their size with nothing but spears. They watched humans survive in frozen wastelands where even plants could not grow. They watched you split the atom and nearly destroy yourselves, then pull back from the edge and survive. The witnesses were advanced beyond anything in this galaxy today, and they were terrified of what you might become." Hai-Jin was quiet for a moment. Then she bowed, a formal gesture of respect. "Elder, we will try to find a peaceful solution. We will offer to negotiate, to compromise, to share the colonies. We will do everything we can to avoid war. And if they refuse?" the elder asked. Hai-Jin's face remained calm, but her eyes were cold as space. "Then they will learn why the witnesses were afraid. They will learn what human fury really means. And they will understand why the elders spoke of Earth with fear in their voices." The old Vesker nodded slowly. "I was afraid you would say that. Please, Ambassador, remember mercy. Remember compassion. Do not become the monsters they think you are." "We remember everything, Elder," Hai-Jin said quietly. "We remember the lessons from our wars. We remember what happens when we lose our humanity. But we also remember what happens when we show mercy to those who show us none. We learned that lesson the hard way, many times. We will not forget it now." She turned and walked away, her footsteps soft on the cold metal floor. Tae-Min and Ji-Ho fell in beside her. As they left, the elder watched them go. He whispered to himself in his own language, words that translated to a simple phrase: "The storm is coming, and we have no shelter." Behind them, in the council chamber, the aliens continued their plans. They divided human territories on maps. They discussed how many troops would be needed. They laughed about how quick and easy this war would be. None of them noticed that they had just made the worst decision of their lives. None of them understood that they had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. The Draxian Empire had 1 year before they would learn the truth. 1 year before silence would claim them all. 11 months passed like sand through fingers. The deadline came with the sunrise over New Pyongyang, the largest human colony in the frontier. Captain Young-Ho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Incheon, watching the sensors as they lit up with contacts. 300 Draxian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The fleet spread out like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars behind them. Lieutenant Su Bin worked at her station, her fingers flying over the controls as she calculated trajectories and weapons ranges. The numbers that appeared on her screen made her stomach tight. She turned to Young-Ho, keeping her voice steady. "Captain, their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours. Their shields are stronger. Their weapons have longer range. Their ships are faster. Even if we fight perfectly, we last maybe 40 minutes. Young-Ho looked at the small fleet around him. 23 human ships, all older models, all patched and repaired so many times that the hulls looked like quilts. Most of them were cargo haulers converted for war. A few were actual military vessels, but they were decades old. Against the Draxian fleet, it looked like children's toys. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then we make those 40 minutes count. Send the signal. Execute Protocol Inchin. Subin's hands hesitated for just a second. Then she entered the command. Across the fleet, every human ship received the same order. It was a protocol they had practiced but hoped never to use. It meant there would be no retreat, no surrender. Just violence and chaos until nothing was left. The human fleet broke apart. Ships scattered in every direction, engines burning at maximum power. From the Draxian flagship, High Commander Vraxis watched with satisfaction. The humans were running. Cowards just as he expected. He gave the order to pursue and destroy. His fleet divided into hunting groups, each one chasing down the fleeing human vessels. What Vraxis did not know was that every human ship carried weapons that had never been tested in real combat. For the past 11 months, while diplomats talked and papers were signed, human engineers had worked day and night in secret. They built weapons that were crude and desperate, but effective. Mass drivers that could throw chunks of metal at incredible speeds. Electromagnetic pulse mines hidden in false cargo containers. And something new, something that scared even the humans who built them. Fury drones. The drones were small automated ships, barely bigger than a car. Each one carried a nuclear-powered laser and a computer. Brain programmed with one simple command: survive long enough to hurt the enemy. They did not fight fair. They did not follow rules. They learned and adapted with each second of combat. And there were thousands of them, hidden in hollowed-out asteroids throughout the belt that circled New Pyongyang. Young Ho led his ship deeper into the asteroid field. Behind him, 3 Draxian cruisers followed, their weapons charging. The Inchin twisted and turned between the floating rocks, moving closer to a large asteroid that looked like all the others. Young Ho counted down in his head. 3, 2, 1. Now, Subin. She pressed the activation switch. The asteroid split open like a flower. Fury drones poured out in a swarm, hundreds of them, moving in patterns that seemed random but were actually calculated chaos. They fell on the Draxian cruisers like angry wasps. The aliens tried to shoot them down, but for every drone destroyed, 2 more took its place. The drones did not care about survival. They rammed into shield generators. They fired their lasers at weapon systems. They attached to hulls and detonated, tearing holes in armor. Across the asteroid field, the same scene repeated 20 times. Human ships led Draxian hunters into ambushes. More asteroids opened. More drones swarmed. The organized Draxian fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships collided with each other, trying to escape the drone swarms. Others fired wildly, hitting their own vessels. The precision and discipline that made the Draxian military feared across the galaxy fell apart in minutes. On the Draxian flagship, Vraxis roared orders, but his commanders were panicking. 47 ships were gone in the first hour. Not from superior human technology, but from tactics that felt like fighting wild animals instead of soldiers. The humans did not line up for honorable combat. They ambushed and ran. They used tricks and traps. They fought dirty, but numbers mattered. The Draxian fleet was still massive. They regrouped, reformed their lines, and came at the human fleet with everything they had. One by one, the human ships died. The Inchin took hit after hit. Fires burned across its hull. Half the crew was dead. Young Ho's uniform was soaked with blood from a piece of shrapnel in his side, but he stayed at his post. Su Bin looked at him, tears on her face. "Captain, we need to evacuate." "No time," Young Ho said. The ship shook as another blast hit them. Send the final message to Earth Command. Tell them we held for 2 hours, not 40 minutes. Tell them the Draxians are angry now. Tell them to send Hyan. Send the Ghost Fleet. He looked at his crew, at the young men and women who had followed him into this battle, knowing they would not survive. It has been an honor to serve with all of you. The engine exploded 3 seconds later, taking 2 Draxian destroyers with it. The debris scattered into the asteroid field. Another piece of rock floating in space shot down on New Pyongyang. The colonists watched the battle through telescopes and sensors. They saw their fleet die. They saw the Draxian ships begin their descent toward the planet. Commander Mi Sun, leader of the colonial militia, gave the evacuation order. Every civilian retreated into the underground bunkers they had built over the past 11 months. The cities emptied in hours. When the Draxian troops landed, they found ghost towns. Empty streets. Abandoned buildings. No targets. No one to conquer. They spread out to search, confident that they would find the hiding humans quickly. That confidence lasted until the first explosion. An IED made from mining equipment tore through a Draxian squad. Then another. Then another. The humans did not meet the Draxians in open battle. They hid in the underground tunnels that connected the cities, moving like ghosts through passages the aliens did not know existed. They used weapons made from whatever they could find. Sniper rifles built from hunting guns. Chemical weapons mixed from industrial compounds. Traps everywhere, in every building, under every street. Misun watched through cameras hidden in the ruins. Her militia was made up of farmers and teachers and engineers. None of them were real soldiers, but they knew their home. They knew every tunnel, every building, every secret path, and they were fighting for their families, their homes, their survival. That made them dangerous. The Draxians responded with brutality. They burned entire city blocks. They executed prisoners. They bombed suspected tunnel entrances. For every act of violence, 10 more humans joined the resistance. The occupation turned into a nightmare. Every day, more Draxian soldiers died to traps and ambushes. Every night, the humans attacked supply depots and communication towers. 3 weeks into the occupation, the Draxian commander sent a message to Vraxis in orbit. We control nothing. The humans are everywhere and nowhere. We are losing troops faster than we can replace them. This planet is a death trap. In orbit, Ambassador Haijin's ship remained hidden in the outer system. She received reports from the surface, from the orbital battle, from Earth. She read Young Ho's final message. She read the casualty lists. 40,000 humans dead. 40,000 names to remember. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, then opened them again. They were hard as diamonds now. A new message came through from Earth Command. 3 words. Ghost Fleet launching. Haijin recorded her response to send to the Draxian flagship. Her voice was cold and formal. High Commander Vraxis, you were warned. You chose to ignore the warning. You chose to mock what you did not understand. Now you will learn. Now you will meet the fury that the elders spoke of. I suggest you leave while you still can. Vraxis deleted the message without responding. Foolish human woman, he thought. But deep in his chest, something he had never felt before began to grow. It took him hours to recognize the feeling. Fear. Admiral Hyan stood on the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched Earth shrink in the viewscreen. Around his flagship, 59 other warships moved in perfect formation. This was the Ghost Fleet, built in secret over 3 decades in shipyards hidden beyond Neptune, where no alien eyes could see. Every nation on Earth had contributed. Every space agency had shared technology. Every government had funneled money into black budgets that asked no questions. humanity had learned from its own bloody history. Never be caught unprepared. Never trust that peace will last forever. Always have a backup plan. The Ghost Fleet was that plan. Commander De Jong approached with a datapad. He was young for his rank, only 35, but he had proven himself in simulations and war games. Now he would face real combat. His voice was steady as he spoke. Admiral, Earth Command is calling this mission Operation Thermopylae. They are comparing us to the Spartans, who held the pass against the Persian Empire. Hyan turned to look at him. The Admiral's face was lined with age and experience. He had served in Earth's military for 40 years, rising through ranks during the brief wars that followed first contact with alien species. He had always known this day might come. Commander, the Spartans held for 3 days and died to the last man. We are going to do better. We are going to win, and we are going to survive. Sir, we are outnumbered 5-1. The Draxian fleet still has over 200 ships in the new Pyongyang system. Numbers only matter if you fight the kind of war they expect, Hyan said. He pulled up a holographic display of the system. Red dots marked Draxian positions. Green dots showed human resistance. They expect us to line up our ships and fight like gentlemen. We are going to fight like humans. We are going to use every dirty trick our species invented over 10,000 years of killing each other. And we are going to teach them why Earth's children should never be underestimated. The fleet traveled for 3 weeks. During that time, every crew member trained. They practiced maneuvers that would kill them if anything went wrong. They memorized attack patterns that made no sense to military doctrine, but made perfect sense to human creativity. They prepared to die, and they prepared to make that death mean something. When they emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Pyongyang system, Hyan broadcast a message on every frequency. His voice reached every Draxian ship, every occupied city, every human hiding in tunnels below the surface. This is Admiral Hyan of the Earth Defense Force. You were warned by your own elders. You chose to ignore that warning. You chose war over peace. Now you will learn what humanity perfected over 10,000 years of conflict. This is your only chance to leave. Stay, and we will show you why the ancient species feared us. The Draxian response came quickly. Phraxis's voice was full of anger and pride. You bring 60 ships against our 200. You have doomed yourselves. Come and die, humans. Show us this fury your ambassador spoke of. As you wish, Hyan said quietly. Then, louder, all ships execute Alpha Strike. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The Ghost Fleet did not charge forward. Instead, they spread out across a wide front, moving at angles that made no tactical sense. Draxian sensors showed the human ships heading in 20 different directions, some even moving away from the battle space. Phraxis ordered his fleet to pursue and destroy these scattered targets. The trap was already set. As the Draxian ships moved to engage, weapons that seemed to come from nowhere struck them. Missiles moving at near light speed, just chunks of iron accelerated to relativistic velocities, smashed into shields and hulls. The projectiles hit with such force that they punched clean through ships, leaving perfectly round holes that vented atmosphere and crew into space. Then came the cyber attack. The Ghost Fleet carried Earth's best hackers, people who had spent their lives breaking into secure systems for governments and corporations. Now they unleashed viruses designed specifically for Draxian computer systems, built from stolen alien technology over years of espionage. Ship controls froze. Weapon systems shut down. Navigation computers showed false readings. Draxian ships began firing on each other, thinking they were shooting at humans. Junior Tactical Officer Yuna sat at her station, controlling swarms of Fury drones that poured from the Ghost Fleet's cargo bays. She was 22 years old, recruited from Seoul's gaming championships because her reaction time and strategic thinking were beyond measure. She had spent 3 years training for this moment. Her fingers danced across controls as she directed thousands of drones in real-time combat. Each one moved independently, but worked as part of a greater whole, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. She fought like she was playing the most important game of her life. Except every unit that died represented real people who had sacrificed everything. The Draxians tried to regroup, tried to form defensive positions, but the Ghost Fleet never gave them time. Hyan's ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired everything they had, then vanished before return fire could land. They used the system star itself as a weapon, manipulating magnetic fields to direct solar radiation at Draxian shields, overloading them with heat and energy. Then came the psychological warfare. The Ghost Fleet began broadcasting on every channel. They played recordings of Draxian soldiers dying on the surface of New Pyongyang, their last words calling for help that never came. They read names and homeworlds of the dead. They showed footage of Draxian civilians protesting the war. They whispered in the dark, "Your leaders sent you to die. They lied to you. Go home while you still can." Commander Dae-Jung coordinated the intelligence operation from his station. "Admiral, we are detecting morale failures across 12 Draxian ships. 3 captains have refused orders. 5 ships are breaking formation and withdrawing." "Let them go," Hyan said. "Every ship that runs is one less ship we have to fight. And every ship that runs tells 10 others that this war cannot be won." The battle lasted 72 hours. The humans called it the 72-hour hell. The Draxians called it the breaking. By the end of the 3rd day, the Draxian fleet was shattered. Half their ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest were scattered across the system, trying to regroup, trying to make sense of what had happened. They had come expecting an easy victory over primitive humans. Instead, they met a species that fought like demons, that used tactics no honorable military would consider, that adapted and changed faster than any enemy they had ever faced. Science Officer Geo, now serving on the Soul's Vengeance, monitored the enemy communications. He heard Draxian commanders screaming at each other, blaming each other, asking for reinforcements that would not come. He heard ordinary soldiers begging to go home. He heard the sound of an empire's confidence breaking. He turned to Hyan. "Admiral, they are defeated. We can offer terms now." "No," Hyan said. His voice was like iron. "Not yet. Earth Command wanted us to secure New Pyongyang and hold position. But if we stop here, we teach the galaxy that humanity can be pushed around if you are willing to take casualties. We need to make a statement so loud that no species will ever dare attack us again. We pursue them home." Dae-Jung's eyes widened. "Sir, that means invading Draxian space. We become the aggressors." "They invaded us first," Hyan said. "They killed our civilians. They destroyed our homes. Now they will learn what happens when you awaken Earth's fury. Prepare the fleet for pursuit. We have 3 targets: their military shipyards, their training academies, and their defense platforms. We destroy their ability to make war. We make sure they never forget this lesson." The Ghost Fleet followed the retreating Draxians. Over the next 2 weeks, they struck 3 Draxian colony worlds. Each attack was precise and brutal. Orbital shipyards exploded into clouds of debris. Military academies were reduced to craters. Defense platforms were torn apart by relativistic missiles. Civilian areas were untouched, but the message was clear: we can reach you anywhere. We can hurt you whenever we want. You are not safe. On the 4th targeted world, something unexpected happened. As the Ghost Fleet prepared to strike, they detected large gatherings in the colony cities. Not military preparations, protests. Draxian civilians filled the streets, holding signs in their own language. Jiho translated them. End the war. Bring our soldiers home. The humans were right. Vraxis lied. Yuna watched the footage from her station, tears streaming down her face. She had killed so many in the past weeks. Thousands of drones, each one destroying enemy ships, each one ending lives. Now she saw that those lives had families, had people who loved them, had civilians who never wanted this war. Her hands shook on the controls. Hyan saw it too. He stood silent for a long moment, watching the alien crowds protest their own government. Then he gave an order that surprised everyone on the bridge. Stand down. Do not fire on this world. Instead, broadcast a message to the civilians. Tell them we do not want to hurt them. Tell them to demand peace from their leaders. Tell them humanity remembers mercy as well as fury. The message was sent. Within hours, the protests spread to other Draxian worlds. The war had become deeply unpopular. Casualty lists kept growing. The primitive humans had humiliated the mighty Draxian military. Citizens demanded answers. They demanded accountability. They demanded peace. Back in orbit over New Pyongyang, the battered remnants of the Draxian occupation force finally surrendered to Mi-san's resistance fighters. The Ghost Fleet returned to a hero's welcome, but Hyan did not smile. He counted the ships that came back with him. 37 out of 60. 23 ships lost. Their sacrifice had won the war, but the cost was high. So terribly high. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the first time in 300 years. The chamber that once echoed with confident voices now filled with whispers of fear. Representatives from every major civilization watched. Holographic displays showing the destruction of Draxian military power. The numbers were devastating. Over 150 Draxian warships destroyed. 3 major military installations reduced to ruins. An empire that had stood for 2,000 years brought to its knees in less than 2 months by a species that had been in space for barely 3 centuries. The Vesker Elder stood in the center of the chamber. His ancient body trembled, not from age, but from the weight of what he had to say. I warned you. I told you what the ancient records said, but you did not listen. You mocked the humans. You called them primitive, weak, childish. Now you see what they truly are. Now you understand why the witnesses left us that warning so long ago. A representative from the Kelter Unity spoke up, her voice shaking. The humans have violated every convention of warfare. They attacked civilian infrastructure. They used psychological torture. They employed weapons that should be banned. They are monsters. Ambassador Haijin, who had been recalled to the council, rose from her seat. She wore her diplomatic robes, but everyone in the chamber could see the steel in her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was measured and calm, but each word fell like a hammer. My people asked for peace. We begged for time to negotiate. We offered to share the colonies, to find a compromise. What did we receive? An ultimatum. An invasion. The deaths of 40,000 civilians. You speak of conventions and laws, but where were these conventions when Draxian troops burned our cities? Where were these laws when they executed prisoners? The chamber fell silent. No one had an answer. Haijin continued. The humans did not want this war, but you forced it upon us. And now you have learned what happens when you back humanity into a corner. We do not surrender. We do not accept defeat. We adapt, we innovate, and we remember every wrong done to us. This is not cruelty. This is survival. On Draxia Prime, the homeworld of the Draxian Empire, the government was collapsing. High Commander Vraxis stood before the Imperial Senate, trying to explain how he had lost a war that should have been won in weeks. The senators shouted at him. demanding answers, demanding accountability. Outside the Senate building, thousands of Draxian citizens protested. Their children had died in a war that made no sense. Their economy was crashing from the military losses. Their pride as a great empire had been shattered. The humans fight without honor. Vraxis roared at the senators. They use cowardly tactics. They refuse to meet us in open battle. They are not warriors. They are vermin. An old senator, one who had lived through 300 years of Draxian expansion, stood slowly. His voice was tired and sad. You said they were primitive. You said they were weak. You promised us an easy victory. Instead, you brought us shame and death. The humans fought exactly as they needed to fight to win. That is not cowardice, Commander. That is intelligence. That is adaptability. That is exactly what our own elders warned us about. You did not listen, and now our empire pays the price. Vraxis tried to argue, but the vote came swiftly. He was stripped of command, charged with gross negligence, removed from all positions. 3 days later, a new government took power in the Draxian Empire, one that promised peace and reconstruction. Their first act was to send a formal request for ceasefire to Earth. The terms were harsh. Complete withdrawal from all human-claimed systems. Reparations for damages and deaths. Public apology from the new Draxian leadership. Formal recognition of human sovereignty and borders. The new government agreed to everything. They had no choice. The alternative was continued war with an enemy they now knew they could not defeat, but victory came with costs that no amount of territory could repay. The Ghost Fleet returned to Earth with 37 ships. 23 had been lost, taking their crews with them. Memorial services were held on every human world. Millions attended. Billions watched. The names of the dead were read aloud in ceremonies that lasted for days. Young Ho's name was among them, along with thousands of others who had fought and died. Commander, Mi-sun emerged from the underground tunnels of New Pyongyang to find her home in ruins. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were torn apart by bombing. The beautiful parks where children once played were now craters and rubble. She walked through the devastation with her surviving militia fighters, all of them silent. They had won. They had driven out the invaders. But the cost was everywhere they looked. She stopped at what used to be a school. The building was mostly gone, just broken walls and scattered pieces of furniture. She remembered teaching there before the war, remembered the sound of children laughing. Now it was silent. She sat down on a piece of rubble and cried. Around her, tough fighters who had battled aliens for weeks also wept. They had won the war, but lost so much of what they were fighting for. Yuna returned to Earth a hero. Parades were held in Seoul. She was given medals and honors. Politicians shook her hand and praised her skill in battle. But at night, she dreamed of the thousands of drones she had controlled, each one destroying enemy ships, each one ending lives. She had killed more efficiently than any soldier in human history, and she was only 22 years old. The nightmares did not stop Dot. She requested reassignment to the Naval Academy as an instructor. On her first day teaching new recruits, she stood before a class of eager young people who looked at her with admiration and awe. She looked back at them and saw what they did not yet understand. War is not a game, she told them, her voice hard. Every decision has a cost. We won against the Draxians, not because we were more advanced, but because we were more desperate and more creative. But never mistake ruthlessness for strength. Never forget that the enemy has families and homes, just like we do. True strength is knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. I forgot that lesson in the heat of battle. Do not make the same mistake. Admiral Haiyan visited the memorial wall on New Pyongyang 5 months after the war ended. The wall was a kilometer long made of black stone, with the names of every human who died carved into its surface. He walked slowly along it, reading names. So many names. He stopped at Young Ho's name and placed his hand on the cold stone. Commander Dae-Yoon joined him. "Sir, Earth Command wants to know if you have any regrets about the campaign." Hyen was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with thought. "I regret every death on both sides. I regret that we had to show the galaxy our capacity for violence. I regret that we became the very thing we feared in our own history. But I do not regret showing them that humanity will not be pushed around." The elders spoke of Earth's fury. They should have also spoken of Earth's determination to protect our own. We did not choose to be monsters. We chose to survive. "Do you think they will attack us again?" Dae-Yoon asked. "No," Hyen said. "Not for a very long time. Maybe never. We made our point. We showed the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. But we also showed them that we remember mercy. We could have destroyed Draxia Prime. We could have killed billions. We chose not to. That choice matters just as much as our victory." Back at the Galactic Council, debates raged about what to do with humanity. Some species wanted to isolate them, to cut off all contact. Others wanted to build alliances, to make sure humans were friends rather than enemies. A few quietly began their own military buildup, afraid that they might be the next target of human fury. The Vesker elder watched it all with sad eyes. He had lived long enough to see many things, but this felt different. Humanity had proven themselves as powerful as any major species in the galaxy, but they had done it through tactics that made everyone uncomfortable. They had shown that rules and conventions meant nothing when survival was at stake. They had demonstrated that raw aggression combined with creativity could defeat superior technology. The galaxy would never be the same got in a private meeting. The elder spoke with Ambassador Hai-Jin one last time before he retired from the council. "You won your war, Ambassador, but you also lost something. The galaxy feared you before because of the ancient warnings. Now they fear you because of what you did. That fear may keep you safe, but it will also keep you alone. Is that what humanity wanted?" Hai-Jin looked at the old alien with honest eyes. "No, Elder. We wanted to be part of the galactic community. We wanted friendship and cooperation. But when that was denied to us, when we were threatened with conquest and slavery, we did what we had to do. If the cost of survival is loneliness, then we will pay that cost. We have been alone before. We survived it then. We will survive it now." The elder nodded slowly. "I believe you will. Humanity always survives. That is what makes you both terrifying and admirable." 5 years passed like water flowing around a stone. The galaxy changed in ways both visible and hidden. The Draxian Empire shrank, focusing on rebuilding rather than conquering. Other species watched and learned. Some built stronger militaries. Others sought peace treaties with humanity, hoping to never face Earth's fury themselves. Trade routes shifted. Alliances reformed. The balance of power that had held steady for thousands of years tilted in a new direction. Ambassador Hai-Jin walked through the Galactic Council chamber as a full member now. Humanity had earned a permanent seat, but it was a cold honor. When she entered rooms, conversations stopped. When she spoke, others listened carefully, but kept their distance. Respect and fear wore the same face, and she could not always tell them apart. She represented a species that had proven itself capable of terrible violence. And that reputation followed her like a shadow. The Vesker elder, now so ancient that he rarely left his private quarters, requested a final meeting before his death. Hai-Jin traveled to the Elder's world, a planet of libraries and archives where knowledge was stored in crystalline structures that sang in the wind. She found him in a quiet chamber surrounded by data crystals, that glowed softly in the dim light. "Ambassador," the elder said, his voice now so weak she had to lean close to hear, "I do not have much time left. Before I join my ancestors, I wanted to show you something. The complete records of the witnesses. The parts I could not share before." He activated a crystal, and holographic text appeared in the air between them, translated into human language. Hai-Jin read slowly, her breath catching as she understood what she was seeing. The witnesses had not feared humanity because of violence. Every species could be violent. They feared something else entirely. The final log entry made it clear. "We have studied these humans for 3 of their generations. We have seen them face extinction from ice, from disease, from starvation, from each other. Every time, they survive. Every time, they adapt. They lose everything and rebuild. They face impossible odds and find ways to win. What frightens us is not their capacity for war, though that is considerable. What frightens us is their absolute refusal to accept any reality they do not choose. They reshape their world to match their will. They do not surrender to circumstance. When blocked, they find another path. When that path is blocked, they create a new one. We have seen species far more advanced, far more peaceful, far more noble. But we have never seen a species so determined to survive and thrive regardless of what stands against them. They will reach the stars. They will spread across the galaxy. And they will change everything they touch. We leave this record as both warning and prophecy. Never, ever give humanity a reason to see you as an enemy. There is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than a human who has decided you threaten their survival or their loved ones." Hai-Jin finished reading with tears on her face. "They understood us better than we understood ourselves." The elder nodded slowly. "Yes, and now the galaxy has learned the same lesson, but at terrible cost. Your species has earned peace through fear. I am sorry. I hoped for better." "So did we, elder," Hai-Jin said softly. "So did we." On Earth, a new generation grew up in the shadow of the war. Children learned about the 72-hour hell in school. They visited memorials and read the names of the dead. They understood that humanity was no longer just another species among many. They were known. They were feared. They were respected. But they were also isolated. Datsu-Bin, promoted to admiral after the war, now commanded Earth's expanded defense fleets. The Ghost Fleet had been rebuilt and enlarged. New shipyards orbited Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Humanity would never be caught unprepared again. She stood on the bridge of her new flagship, watching construction drones assemble another warship, and wondered if they had created safety or just ensured that the next war would be even more destructive. On New Pyongyang, Commander Mi-sun planted trees where battles had been fought. The colony had been rebuilt, but it looked different now. Stronger walls, deeper bunkers, every building designed to be defended. The parks were beautiful again, and children played there, but their parents watched the sky with nervous eyes. They had learned that peace was fragile, and that survival required constant vigilance. Mi-sun sat under a tree she had planted herself, watching those children play. One of them, a little girl maybe 6 years old, ran up to her. "Commander Mi-sun, my teacher said you fought the aliens. Is that true?" Mi-sun smiled gently. "Yes, it's true. Were you scared?" "Every day," Mi-sun admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done, even when you're terrified." The girl thought about that for a moment. "My daddy says the aliens won't come back because they're afraid of us now. Is that good?" Mi-sun looked at the child's innocent face and wished she could give a simple answer. "It's complicated. Being feared keeps us safe, but it also keeps us lonely. The best outcome would be if they respected us because they understood us, not just because they were afraid. But sometimes, when you're fighting for survival, you don't get to choose how others see you. The girl nodded seriously, pretending to understand, then ran back to her friends. Mi-san watched her go and prayed that this child would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was known for more than just fury. Yuna, now a professor at Earth's Naval Academy, taught thousands of students over the years. She always began her courses the same way, with the same warning about the cost of war. Some students understood immediately. Others needed time. A few never learned, and those were the ones who worried her most. She developed new training programs, focused not just on how to fight, but on when to fight and when to seek other solutions. The military brass sometimes complained that she was making their soldiers too soft. She always replied the same way, "I'm making them wise." Wisdom wins more battles than weapons ever will. On his 70th birthday, Admiral Hyan, long retired, gave his final public interview. The reporter asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Do you regret the invasion of Draxian space?" Hyan, his hair now white and his face deeply lined, thought carefully before answering. "I regret every death on both sides. I regret that we had to show the galaxy our capacity for violence. But I don't regret showing them that humanity will not be pushed around." The elders spoke of Earth's fury. They should have also spoken of Earth's love for our own, our determination to protect what is ours, and our willingness to pay any price for survival. We did not choose to be feared. We chose to survive. The galaxy can interpret that however they wish, but they will never again make the mistake of thinking humans are easy prey. The interviewer pressed, "Some historians say you could have stopped after liberating New Pyongyang. They say the invasion was unnecessary aggression." Hyan's eyes hardened. Those historians were not there. They did not see our colonies burning. They did not count our dead. If we had stopped, we would have taught the galaxy that humanity could be hurt if you are willing to take casualties. The next species that wanted our worlds would have tried again. By taking the war to Draxian space, we sent a message that could not be misunderstood. Attack us, and we will not stop until you are broken. That message bought us 5 years of peace. How many human lives was that peace worth? The interview ended, but the debate continued. Humanity was divided about what they had become. Some celebrated their victory and military strength. Others worried that they had sacrificed their souls to save their bodies. Both sides were right. Both sides were wrong. Truth, as always, lived somewhere in between. The Galactic Council commissioned a memorial of their own, placed at the entrance to the council chamber where every representative would see it. A simple plaque, carved with words in every known language. It read, "Here stands humanity, born of conflict, tempered by survival, seeking peace but prepared for war. Mock them at your peril. They remember everything." Hai-Jin stood before the plaque on the day of its unveiling. Other representatives gave speeches about learning from the past and building better futures. She said nothing, just stared at the words. When the ceremony ended and others left, she remained. The Vesker elder's replacement, a younger member of his species, approached her. "Ambassador, do you think this memorial will prevent future wars?" Hai-Jin turned to look at the alien. "No, memorials never prevent wars. They just remind us what war costs. But maybe that's enough. Maybe if we remember the cost, we'll think twice before paying it again." The alien nodded and left. Hai-Jin stayed a moment longer, then walked through the now empty chamber to the observation deck. Through the massive windows, she could see Earth, a small blue dot in the distance. She thought of all the humans on that planet and on the colonies spread across space. She thought of the dead who had bought their survival with blood and sacrifice. She thought of the future, uncertain and full of possibility, later that day. She traveled to New Pyongyang for the anniversary memorial service. She stood with Mi-sun and thousands of colonists at the Wall of Names. She placed a white chrysanthemum at the base of Young-ho's name, following the traditional Korean custom for honoring the dead. "We kept our promise, Captain," she whispered to the stone. "They'll never mock us again. They'll never underestimate us again. And maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice before threatening us again." She looked up at the sky, at the vast sea of stars that held both danger and wonder. Somewhere out there, species were watching humanity. Some with fear, some with respect, some with hatred, some with hope. The galaxy knew Earth's name now. They knew what humans could do when pushed to the edge. They knew about the fury that ancient species had warned about, but they also knew something else. They knew that humanity, for all its violence, had shown restraint at the critical moment. They knew that humans could have destroyed Draxia Prime, but chose mercy instead. They knew that humanity fought with everything they had, but remembered to stay human. The silence that followed the war was not the silence of submission. It was not the silence of fear, though fear was part of it. It was the silence of understanding, of a galaxy learning a new truth about a species they had thought they understood. Humanity was dangerous, yes. Unpredictable, certainly, but also capable of mercy, of wisdom, of choosing a harder path when it was the right one. As the sun set over New Pyongyang, casting long shadows across the memorial wall, Haijin allowed herself a small smile. The future was uncertain. The peace was fragile. The galaxy still did not trust humanity completely, and humanity did not trust the galaxy. But they had survived. They had proven themselves, and they had done it while holding on to the core of what made them human. The elders had spoken of Earth's fury. Now the galaxy knew that fury was real, but they also knew it came from a place of fierce love, of determination to protect, of refusal to surrender. That was humanity's true strength, not their weapons, not their tactics, but their absolute commitment to survival and to each other. The stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to the small blue planet that had changed everything. And on that planet, and on the colonies scattered across space, humans looked up at those same stars with hope and determination. They had paid a terrible price for their place in the galaxy, but they had earned it, and they would never, ever let anyone take it away.